Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole Lore and Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. With the Mario movie highly successful, I believe like $500 million dollars have been made on the film, biggest opening for animated film ever. The Mario movie is hugely successful and hugely popular, and one of the things that has really gotten me excited is that it has put Donkey Kong himself at the forefront of a major Nintendo success story. So I think it's safe to say that like some major Donkey Kong announcement will be coming in the next couple of years, which of course has me very excited. I'm a big Donkey Kong fan, but it's really gotten me thinking about like the last major announcement we got from the Donkey Kong brand. And it's a very interesting situation because I think this is one of the most disrespectful situations I have ever seen in my life. And in fact, it's interesting how often I've seen this brought up in recent years in regards to like retro studios and like the Donkey Kong IP as a whole, and in regards to Nintendo as a whole, and that like people are starting to notice the stereotypes and they are pushing back against it. And that is, of course, like the typical Pretendo tendency to like attack every single new Nintendo product that gets announced. Like no matter what it is, no matter what franchise it is, no matter who's making it, like someone will always try to find a reason to bitch. And 10 years ago, during E3, during the VGX 2014, excuse me, was it 2013? Yeah, I think it was 2013. During VGX 2013, people found a reason to bitch. People found a reason to complain about Donkey Kong. And that was because Reggie Fils-Aimé, ahead of time, teased like a major announcement at the VGX. And a lot of people got excited. They thought that like, oh, this could be Metroid. This could be like a big new game announcement. This could be like, a big deal. This could be like something, this is going to be something tailored to the Western gaming audience. Now, it's important to note that like Reggie didn't say anything along those lines. It was just like people from NeoGAF making these wild assumptions and like, being way off base with everything, like NeoGAF usually does. But Reggie goes on stage, he demonstrates Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, and he demonstrates that Cranky Kong is in the game. And of course, people like me are just like, holy crap, Tropical Freeze, sequel to Donkey Kong Country Returns. I love Cranky Kong. The visuals look great. The music by David Wise sounds fantastic. Like, that game would go on to be like one of the best games on Wii U, one of the best platformers ever made, something that I look back on very, very fondly. But even back then, I knew this game was going to be great, right? But the thing is, a lot of people did not agree with me. In fact, most people thought the exact opposite. Like, how dare they do this to us? A measly 2D platformer at this premier video game award show? How dare they treat Western gamers like this? They're disrespecting us. This is why the Wii U is failing. This is why Nintendo is going to go third party. Like, they just cannot compete with the real video games, like No Man's Sky or Destiny. This was the same show, by the way, where Sean Murray showed off No Man's Sky for the first time, which kicked off the whole like No Man's Sky is like the biggest game ever like thing, like hype cycle going into this, which was more embarrassing than anything else. But like, I've always like associated those two things, like Tropical Freeze and No Man's Sky, because we got two completely different responses to two completely different games, right? No Man's Sky was worshipped and adored, while Tropical Freeze was shit on and ignored, right? And it is remarkable, like looking back on this, at the time it felt like I was all alone and like talking about like Cranky Kong and how like Nintendo was being disrespected. But like I've seen a lot of people over the past like couple of years like bring up that specific event up, like that specific reaction of the community up when it comes to the Donkey Kong IP, because a lot of people seem to think that like Donkey Kong should be treated as like the new Star Fox or the new Metroid, because Metroid has been getting a ton of games and Donkey Kong hasn't. So like instead of complaining about Metroid not getting enough games, the narrative should be that we're not getting enough Donkey Kong games. So like a lot of people had tried like steering the conversation in that direction, like, oh, where are all the Donkey Kong games, Nintendo? Like don't you respect your original Mario antagonist? But plenty of people have come up and said like, well, wait a minute. when they revealed Tropical Freeze, which looked great, this was a game that was the fifth entry in the Donkey Kong Country trilogy series, right? It was just stellar all around. One of the best looking games on Wii U at that period. Like, this big deal from Nintendo. Like, it was. You disrespected it. The same exact people who are like begging for a new Donkey Kong game now are like seriously sitting around and like seriously complained about the game when it first came out. Like, it's the same group of people. That's the thing. And people are starting to catch on to the fact that no matter what happens, certain individuals are going to complain about Nintendo no matter what. Right now you have like Cliff Blazinski, the mastermind behind Lawbreakers. Oh, I'm not going to play Zelda Tears of the Kingdom because of the weapon durability. Did you even see that trailer? You fucking retard, with the fusion and just never take people who complain about like Zelda's durability system seriously. It's just a justification, right? It is an excuse to downplay the new Nintendo game in favor of like hyping up whatever the fuck. Like Cliffy B will still like pretend that Lawbreakers was like I don't know, like going to be a huge success. Like come the fuck on, really. So where was I? What? It's always been freakishly common for like every new Nintendo game to like get shit on and ignored, right? Dread, when it was shown off, like, oh, it looks like a 3DS game. Nito, like lots of Wii U ports were written off. ARMS was shit on, like Octopath Traveler was shit on. The list goes on and on, right? Nintendo Switch Online, the entire service was shit on. The Switch is being shit on right now. But like more and more, I really have to wonder, just it feels as if the vast majority of these things, these ideas are falling on deaf ears. It really does feel like it's just a bunch of people like screaming at each other in the void. And like most consumers are just buying and playing the games anyway, regardless of what anyone is saying online. It really does feel at this stage that like the online gaming community is nothing but a bubble. And I do think a big reason for that is like the decline of NeoGAF and the lack of respect from gaming journalism. Because gaming journalism used to like work in conjunction to push narratives, and they still do that. They absolutely do that. But like the thing is, if nobody's reading the gaming journalists, if nobody like cares what they have to say about anything, like their narratives never really take off. At the very most, they'll like get Horizon Zero Dawn like nominated for like the Game of the Year award or whatever, only for it to like lose to Breath of the Wild. Like it's people don't respect gamer journalists. And as a result of that, like their ideas don't really take hold, or their propaganda doesn't really take hold in like the general community. Like without NeoGAF kind of like creating this image of users concerned about the future of Nintendo, the Pretendo community was not able to sustain itself. Right now you just have a couple of people like tweeting vainly, hoping people notice that like, oh, I'm angry at Nintendo for this, for how they utilized Peach in the Mario movie, or how they made Tears of the Kingdom, or how they're making Pikmin and not a real game. Like there are people like that out there, but they are very clearly, very blatantly a distinct minority. And more, I think people are starting to make fun of them. Honestly, like people aren't intimidated by these people anymore. Like people look at this and just kind of say that like, I'm excited for the game. Like that's kind of what it comes down to, is I just don't see the vast majority of the audience like going along with these narratives for much longer. Like we've recently seen like Breath of the Wild is now bigger than Final Fantasy, like, right? Like the Zelda Renaissance has made the series more popular than Final Fantasy, despite like the years long campaign from PlayStation to like paint like Zelda as a dead IP and Final Fantasy as like the king of the RPG genre. Like Zelda's bigger than Final Fantasy now. And so we're going to have to deal with this fact that nobody's going to talk about it. Nobody's going to address it at all. In fact, like we're kind of seeing the opposite. Like, Final Fantasy 16 looks incredibly underwhelming, incredibly disappointing. But all anyone can talk about is like, oh, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm so disappointed by what I've seen. It's just, it's not going to stick, honestly. And I do think all of that has roots with events like the VGX, events like E3 2015, events like the reception to ARMS. Like, so many people have seen their favorite games get trashed by game journalists over the years that they no longer see any value in paying attention to like the narrative at all. Like, at this stage, I can tell you that like I honestly don't know what the Metacritic score is for like any recent releases, because I honestly don't care. Like, what value does like a number really give to me when it comes to like just to how good a video game actually is? Like, essentially nothing. Like, I've mentioned this before, but a lot of my favorite games are in like the 80, 85 range, right? Like, 78 to 85 range, excuse me. Like, it's weird to think that, but like, critic scores really have no bearing on like how I review and talk about games at all. And I think more and more, especially after like situations like the Mario movie, like I think people are just going to straight up like say, like, ignore the critics, ignore the game journalists going forward. And I think like Nintendo is in a really good position to take advantage of that mindset. They have their news button on Nintendo Switch Online. They have their eShop. They have their general like YouTube channel, which is going to continue to grow. Like, I feel as if the Pretendo community, I said this several times, but like the Pretendo community is a dying breed. Like it really was like a group of people cultivated in like the era of like Nintendo, right? The era of like people who were trained to think that like Nintendo was uncool. Like, it's not really a thing anymore. Honestly, like it's so childish to attack Nintendo in this day and age, and I think more and more people are going to acknowledge that.